Good morning, Lee, and welcome to my podcast, One for the Road. You're a busy man. You're traveling around Spain. You live in France and you're heading to the UK tomorrow. You better bring a big coat, mate, because it's -6 at the moment.
So I've heard, mate. So I've heard. I'm not looking forward to it, I tell you.
A bit different from Spain, where you're wandering around because I found out the other day on your stories that your sense of direction is equally as bad as mine. And it really made me laugh, because I thought as a man, it's one of these things that I think the old fashioned version of a man is to know where you're going. And that's why men never want to ask directions in the old days. I mean, we got sat navs now, but back in the day, it would be like, ask where it is. And that's like, I'm not asking. And you're driving around for about an hour, getting more and more lost. And it really made me laugh actually, because I was looking at your stories of using Google Maps or something, and it was going everywhere but where your car was.
I still missed it. Make my sense of direction is shocking. And even with sat navs and Google Maps, I still get lost.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't know, like my arse and my elbow. It's
No,
it's
I
it's,
think
it's
it's
terrible.
something in our brain that it's just I've never been any good, and even if you got an SAS soldier teach me about navigation, I still think I'd be terrible. So yeah, I've just accept it now. But anyway, how are you, mate?
Mate, I'm good. It's been a long week. It's been the first week back, so I've had back-to-back clients, and obviously a lot of people have got a lot of stuff to dump because of the Christmas period. So
Yeah.
I'm a little bit peopled out, if I'm honest.
Oh well, this is perfect timing then.
Actually, this is quite a welcome break, to be fair.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know how it works, mate. And I've heard your story, and it's always good to start right from the beginning. So if you could tell our lovely listeners who you are and what it was like for you growing up.
So my name is Lee Anderson, and I am a life coach. I've been a coach for about 9 years now. And for me, I have when my laptop's gone off. And I coach people to understand themselves because years and years and years and years ago, I lost myself, uh, never ever to be found again, or so I thought. I had a problem with drugs and alcohol. So I'm 4 years sober,
Well
and I'm
done.
really proud of that. And I'm 8 years clean, and I'm really proud of that. I tried so many times to give up, and it was hard. It really was because I wasn't dealing with the internal problem. I was just dealing with the external problem. So for me, going back, I grew up in and around pubs. My mum was a barmaid, then she eventually ran pubs herself. So we was kind of always inside pubs. We saw the community that it was, which it was. It was like the heart of our community. We'd go there on a Friday, on a Saturday, see the same people that had kids the same age as ours and that sort. So it was normal. We kind of normalized that lifestyle. And you don't really realize how much it impacts you growing up. Even as you get a bit older and you start making your own mates, you go around the club, you go around the pub, you kind of flick flack from one to the other. We never had mobile phones, so we knew that you would find somebody in a pub somewhere. You had your own little crawl that you'd kind of stay within. Um, and that was how it started for me, really. I knew what alcohol did to people, but I didn't know how it felt. I'd just see people pour drinks and have drinks. I never really drank. We were kind of told not to touch it. So, I'm an eldest of three kids, right? My mum, she was a single parent. I've got two younger sisters. So I had quite a lot of responsibility, towards my sisters growing up, the one I could go out and provide for us. And that's hard. Oh, that's hard being responsible at a young age because one minute you're told, you're the man of the house, I expect you to do this and blah, blah, blah. And the next minute you're kind of demoted back down to a kid. And it's difficult to accept that. One minute you've been given this adult role, and the next minute you're a child again, and your emotions are really trying to understand that. And as men, as you know, mate, we don't know how to articulate our emotions. We just bottle that stuff up and suppress it. Um, and I grew up in a house full of women. So five aunts, my nan, my two sisters, my mum, and then we had one of my mum's friends moving with us as well, who was a woman. So I never had no role models as males. So I would just look outside to see if there was anybody that I could connect with, or maybe take me under their wing and that. Um, but I was always quite lonely. I was always quite lonely, and I was quite happy with that. It was a way to cope and manage. in that sense. I had a lot of good friends growing up, but I kind of stayed on the periphery of those friends, you know. I emotionally, I just didn't feel as if I kind of fitted. You know what I mean? Like I always knew there was something different about it, but I didn't know what it was. And you kind of deny it, don't you? Because you just want to fit in. Like, you just want to be accepted by everybody. You don't want to be the odd one. You don't want to get marginalised. You know what I mean? You just want to be popular to a degree that, you know, you're just there. And I'm a big lad, mate. Like, I'm 6'5". I've always been the biggest within my class, so I can't hide. You know, I can't hide in crowds. I can't hide in corners. Like you always see me, and it's hard because you get a lot of pressure. There's an expectation. If he's a big lad, he can handle himself. If he can handle himself, I'm going to get my ego to test him. And I'm really sensitive, right? But I had to hide that. And alcohol was a good way for me to do that because it gave me confidence. Because I had no confidence as a kid, absolutely none whatsoever. You know, I was just happy to play a role and just kind of drift. But at the same time, internally, you're battling with yourself. You know, why am I different? What's different about me? Why are they not accepting me? Why do I look like this? Why do people say these things about me? Why do people do these things? You know, but you've got no one to talk to or ask, so you just suppress it all. And alcohol used to help numb that. You know, it really did. Um, but you know, the back end of that is 1 minute you're dancing in the penthouse, next minute you're crashed and you're burnt in the basement. You know, and all those problems and all those issues and the way that you feel, they're there and they just get magnified more. So
Mm.
you repeat, and I just become a repeat offender because I didn't know how to articulate the way that I was feeling. No one ever showed me. They never told me. I never saw it.
Yeah, I can relate to that. With the sensitivity, I'm highly sensitive now. I don't think it's something you train yourself out of. It's how I am, you know.
Mm.
And I grew up, you're slightly younger than me. I think you're 10 years younger than me, but the era was that you don't show emotions and because your parents didn't show emotions, you know, it was very practical. You know, they would do things. Dad would fix something for me and mum would cook the dinner and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? And
Mm.
so we were never taught how to express emotions. And when I started drinking, um, the pubs didn't need ID. So then there were all the kind of the geezers in there throwing darts and playing pool and wee attitude, you know, and it's like a new world for me. Come here, boy, let me buy you a pint, kind of thing.
It, it's exactly that.
And you grow up really quickly, don't you? Because 1 minute you're sitting in the bedroom looking at the wall, like I think I was 14 when I first started drinking, but it's also a transitional period in your life where you're going from a boy into a man, but you don't know what that looks like or feels like, right? But you
Mm.
kind of get trampolined into adulthood when you're drinking amongst men, geezers.
I think for me it was different. For me it was more, you know, because I was told to grow up and I was told to be an adult, then I done what I thought adults did. You know what I mean? But you don't know the consequences because you don't really see that side of it. You know, you just see
Mm.
the beginning and the middle. And so I remember the first time I had a drink, my mum used to have this unit with a pull down flap and she keep all the alcohol in it. So when she used to go to work, I used to wait and I used to pour myself a drink with every single spirit she had and I'd knock it back just like an adult did. And it was disgusting.
How
I'd
old
still
were
do
you,
it.
Lee?
I was probably about 8 or 9. That's the
Oh,
first time I kind of
really?
tried alcohol. Yeah. So because it was in there, so it was because if I've been told I used to take things literally, I still do. So if you're the adult, you're in charge, right? So I
Mm.
get adult responsibilities, which means I can do what adults do. And my mum had this big cheese plant, you know, from and over a period of time it started to die because when I was drinking this drink, because I couldn't drink it, it just got to pour it into the plant, and we was trying to work out why this plant had died, and it was because of the alcohol. Um, but then I didn't. I think when I started doing it, I stopped because I didn't like the taste of it. I didn't like the way it was making me feel. You know, I mean, I didn't like the after effect. But when I got to about 14, 15, we moved to a new place and I had to get a bus back to where I lived. And then there was gangs and then those sort of things. And I used to travel on my own. And again, being a big lad, it was easy target. So I used to have a couple of beers on the bus just to kind of chill myself and calm my nerves because it was the only way that I could, what I know now, steady my anxiety. You know, because again, these emotions are running through my body and I don't know what they are. I don't know how I'm supposed to feel. And I definitely ain't going to tell nobody because I don't want them telling me that I'm a dickhead. So
Mm.
I'd rather have kept that to myself. And then I think my drinking really kind of started when I was about 16, 17. We started going to pubs and I was always the first one in because I'd get us served. off licenses. We'd sit on a corner drinking like warm vodka and lemonade out of plastic cups in the playground. That's what we did. And the first time I ever got drunk was on 4 cans of Tennant Super,
Oh God.
one after the other. Mate, I was in
Yeah.
bits. So that was my first ever hangover, and the first time I was ever sick on drink. And but mine was all very much emotional led, very much emotional led because I just felt as if I was not like everybody else. There was lots of things going around in my body, and I just didn't know how to deal with them. We're trying to navigate teenage years. We're trying to navigate that transition from, child into young adult, adult into adult, young adult into adult. And it's hard because nobody teaches you this. You just look around the people that you surround yourself with, and you just copy. Because if they're doing it, it works. Then that's what I need to do. But it just didn't feel right. It just didn't feel right. But alcohol helped. It was my friend, man. It went with me everywhere. If I was going out, I'd have a few beers to steady the nerves, get into the pub, have a few beers. Because I'd get really paranoid at the door of the pub because I didn't know what was beyond it. And my confidence and my self-esteem would stand there and prevent me from pushing the door open because I was like, I've got to walk through this pub now. Otherwise people are going to look at me. And that was a real issue for me. But when I got to the bar, I'd have a quick beer, neck that, second one, steady the nerves, by the third one, I was good. I was ready. It's almost like a uniform you put on, and I was ready now to face these people. Um, but I didn't have a problem as far as I was concerned because everyone else was doing it. They normalised my behaviour.
Yeah. Yeah. When you say you didn't know what was going on in your body, as a man now, can you understand that? Because as a kid, it's confusing, isn't it?
Well, mate, even now, man, some of it's still confusing. You know what I mean? Because we're still trying to unravel stuff that's kind of pretty much conditioned us. Um, I think part of mine was the fact that I came out as gay when I was 22. I really struggled with that. I really struggled with that. And alcohol helped. But what alcohol did was it started to make me think really negative thoughts. So I started to romanticize about suicide, stuff like that, because I didn't want to be gay. I was never on my radar. The last thing I'd ever wanted to be was be gay. You know what I mean? I didn't want that. I never had a dad. So for me, emotionally, I'd shut myself off from men. I
Mm,
was abandoned, and I didn't want that. My mum would have relationships, and like I said, I would get elevated to the man of the house. If a new man came into the house, I was then demoted back to a child.
mm,
And that used to build up resentment. And I'd put barriers between me and them because I knew that as soon as they didn't match her energy, she was going to kick them out. Do you know what I mean? And so that feeds into you because you're protecting yourself massively. I'd never open up to these guys. I'd never have relationships with these guys because I just thought any moment now you're going to piss off and she's going to go. Like she's going to boot you out. Or there's going to be a bag at the door when you get in from school and you knew that they would go.
mm.
So my parent, my mum, her behaviour really impacted me because I was a byproduct of that.
I can
She was
really
16.
understand that.
Yeah.
You know,
She was
like,
16 when she had me. So
yeah,
her life was put on pause basically, and she had to become an adult. But yeah,
yeah,
mentally and emotional intelligence, she was still a teenager. But she's having to adapt. And, I'm mixed race, mate. And back in 75, having a mixed race kid as a single parent as a teenager was a no. So there was a lot of shame attached to her. And she gave that shame to us because she didn't want people thinking differently of her or less of her. So that shame she carried of having, mixed race kids by three different dads was hard,
yeah,
hard. And
yeah,
it's only when you get a bit older you realise that actually like that's not my issue. So I know what shame felt like and it didn't belong to me.
yeah. But at the
But
time,
you
you
don't
don't know
realise.
that, do you? And it's really
Nah,
confusing. And, your relationship with men was dysfunctional, wasn't it? Because,
massively.
you know, like that whole, I can see the resentment there because it's almost like you demoted, promoted, then demoted again. And you didn't know whether he was coming or going. You didn't understand a solid relationship with a man,
Mm.
but then you had all these feelings going on inside you as well, which was confusing. So,
And I think also, the fact that like for me, I wanted my mum's love. I wanted her to give me kisses. I wanted her to give me cuddles, but she didn't. She wasn't like that. She never nurtured us like that. She was a provider. So if you remember, she had to step into two roles here. So she's also being a mum, but she's being a dad. So for her, her priority was to go out and make sure that we had clothes on our back and food on the table. Do you know what I mean? At all costs,
Yeah.
which meant that she neglected us because it meant that I was
Emotionally,
in.
your
Yeah,
emotional needs weren't met, were they?
absolutely. So what happens is, mate, is you shut down.
Yeah.
Because it's like a snail. Yeah, when a snail puts his head out and you touch it and it crawls back in again.
Yeah.
That's what emotion does to me. I'm like, oh, I don't know how to do with that, mate. You know, I'd rather just run. But as I'm getting older and I'm starting to learn about me and myself and the understanding, I can see what I do and why I do it, and I become aware of that. And I've slowly started to change that. But going back to the drinking, you know, it was my place to hide, man. It was my place to be seen. It was my place to be accepted. You know, it was my place where I could just go and do whatever I wanted and justify it by saying, well, I was drunk.
It's really fascinating what you said then, actually. It was my place to hide. It was my place to be seen. One
It's crazy, isn't it?
contradicts the other, doesn't it?
It's crazy, isn't it?
But it's true, isn't it?
So let me break that down for you,
Because
all
you
right? So
put
what?
this full fake persona on, right? So you hide within yourself your true authenticity, right? And out comes this
Yeah.
player. Do you know what I mean? This like actor that we put on. That's such a fascinating sentence you said then.
It is, and that's the reason why I say that because it contradicts itself. You know, I was wearing so many masks to be around so many different groups, and
Mm,
you get lost. I
mm,
got lost, Dave. I didn't know who the fuck I was.
yeah,
You know, I was either somebody's son or somebody's brother or good time. You know
yeah.
what I mean? Like it was very, very rare that you would see glimpses of me because I didn't know who that was. I didn't know how that felt anymore. It was just easy to become this version of myself that people accepted. But it gets exhausting.
Yeah.
I
How
was
old?
living two lives.
Yeah, yeah. How old were you when you realised you were gay, though, Lee? Because you said you came out at 22, right? And you said it was like terrifying. Like, and you said that there were things going on within your body that you didn't understand. So was there like a real transition before you decided?
So being gay was never, ever, 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 ever on my radar. It was never something that I thought of. Do you know what I mean? Because I was brought up in an environment where we just didn't see any people that were gay or lesbian or whatever. You know, we didn't see it on TV. What we did, what was getting pushed by society was people, the game show hosts. You know, I was getting nothing from that. I wasn't looking for that. So being gay was the last thing. I started to realize when I was about 16, 17, that I was a little bit different. You know what I mean? But I didn't know what he was. Um, and there's a lack of education on TV. You know, there's a lack of
Yeah,
education within classrooms and in those kind of environments. So everyone is guesswork. But I think I kind of struggled with it. I was going out with a girl for about 6 years because it was just like everybody else did. Do you know what I mean? Like you get into a couple, then you all start going out as friends, you're going out having dinner, you get a bit more civilized, and you go out and get smashed. And then we split up, and I was kind of like, I know there's something not right. I just don't know what it is. And it was really getting me down, really getting me down. And I was drinking quite heavy then because I was working in a pub as well. So again, I was getting drunk for free in an environment where nobody questioned it. Do you know what I mean? Um, and I used to sit on my toilet every morning, like this little black and white tile. And I used to think to myself, right, if the toilet roll drops on the white tile, then I'm going to say this word. And if it doesn't, I ain't. And I'd always pray that it'd drop on the black one so I didn't have to say this word. And then one day it did, and I just said, okay, just come out really quickly. And I couldn't take it back in. And I knew. And then I was like, right, shit, my life is going to be destroyed now
mm,
because, you know, I'm going to become this person. And I know what people's perceptions were of gay people. And I know what my perceptions were of gay people. And I didn't want to be those. So again, I kind of used alcohol because I was like, people are going to kill me. People are going to put, you know, they're going to do all these nasty things to me. But the one thing I didn't think about was how am I going to feel about it?
mm.
How do I adapt to this? You know what I mean? So it took me about a year to kind of get the courage to give out and kind of tell people and stuff. And I was thought people were going to leave, so I was ready to be on my own. I'd adapted and adjusted to that way of thinking. Do you know what I mean? I'd make provisions and all that sort of stuff. So I was ready to lose my family and my friends. But you know, again, drinking kind of suppresses that.
Mm.
But then what it does do on the flip side, it makes it worse because then you start to catastrophize stuff. And I have a really negative brain that throws everything at me. And I'm like, right, let's just imagine this in a bigger scale. And I just did. I just started getting drinking and drinking and drinking. And I had these outbursts. I smashed my flat up one night as well because I just wouldn't take it anymore. You know, I'd fucking go to random parties people I didn't even know, just so I could just try to run away from this feeling, constantly. But he just wasn't doing anything, mate. He was just making it worse in that sense. And then I remember I told my sister, and she was like, "That was not what I was expected, but that's not a problem." Do you know what I mean? Like, and then I think it got a little bit easier then, and then it didn't become my issue anymore. Being gay wasn't my issue anymore. I'd admitted it to myself, and now I had to kind of adapt. I was now living two lives. I was living a straight life and a gay life. And both of them involved alcohol because I didn't know how to act in this new gay life. I didn't know what it
Mm.
was like to be around loads of men. Men scared the living shit out of me.
Exactly.
Right. So I'm in these environments, so I'm drinking more and more and more because now
Yeah.
it's more than just like, all right, mate, it's more of a kind of potential as if we could go home together. I don't know what that's like. I've never
Yeah.
done that before. So it's scary.
Yeah.
But it was an environment I was in that I felt comfortable in. Like, I felt comfortable to be me. It was the first time that I actually felt like Lee.
Yeah.
People didn't know me.
And
You know what I
you
mean?
also didn't know you. And do you know what's going through my mind at the moment? And I've often used this analogy, is that I felt like I was coming out when I stopped drinking because everyone knew me for this version of me. And then all of a sudden I had to come out and go, I'm not drinking anymore. And the response I got was okay in a lot of areas. But from my real, well, I say real, my ex-mates was like, oh, well, that's us over then, kind of thing. Do you know
Mm.
what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah, 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 yeah.
it felt very similar because it was like I also didn't know what that version of me looked like because I've done it since I was a kid.
That's the thing, isn't it? That's the key right there, is that I'm only starting to know who Lee is now, like really who he is now, because I've taken away all these distractions. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it's
Yeah.
it's it's horrible. It's not horrible. It's a really, really cathartic place, but it's very scary
Yeah.
because I've got no coping strategies now, or like,
Well,
no
you did it that.
physical.
But,
But at the time I did, but
but
now they're totally different.
yeah. 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 So going back to that then in your 20s, then, like, where you've now decided that you're gay and you've come out and whatever. And moving forward, like, what was your drinking like then? Did it go up a level? Did it calm down? What did it look
It
like?
went up. It went up because, mate, I experience anxiety and social surroundings, which again I didn't know at the time. I know these now, so my drinking would go up because I was very, very anxious.
Mm.
Because again, I didn't know how to conduct myself in these environments. People would like guys would pinch your ass and touch you and flip them. I didn't know how to act to that. I didn't know what to do for that. There's a part of me going, yeah, that's what I really want, but not knowing how to allow that side to come out because I'm so conditioned here that this was dictating to me. Do you know what I mean? And
Mm.
then I'm either making a dick of myself or not saying nothing. And then coming out next day and going, next time I go, I'm going to do so and so. But what happens is, mate, that's just my lifestyle. I was then working in town then. Right. So I was open then to a lot more different people, a lot more cultures, a lot more environments. And it was all based around going out for a few beers.
Mm.
But I never had no stop button. I didn't know when to stop. I was always the last one. We get another one. Oh, we're going to get a cab. Always get another one while waiting for the cab.
Well,
I'd collect
what's
glass.
this podcast called? One for the road. I mean, that was my classic line every time. Should we have one for the road? And then have
Yeah.
that. Oh, should we have another one for the road? You know, and it was like the more I drank, the more I wanted to be out and in, until I never wanted to be out and all I wanted to do was be in.
Hmm.
It's got a weird thing, but so yeah, and it was a different era then as well, wasn't it? Like 30 years ago, it was more Hello Sailor and all that business, like all the um, sitcoms and comedies and sketches. And you are like, as you say, a big bloke, a geezer, you know. So I can imagine it was difficult for you to go through that time.
Hmm. Well, mate, you're not right. You're still trying to understand who you are, right? But what you're doing is you're taking bits of other people,
Yeah.
bits that you like about other people, and making them about you. And it's difficult to function like that because it's not organic, it's not natural. Do you know what I mean? But you still pretend to keep up this facade because it's all about acceptance. We
Mm.
just want to be accepted in
And
whatever
that's
way
what
it is.
drinking's all about, isn't it? It's all
Yeah.
about that. And when you say about, what version you were and how many masks you wear, I think a lot of us that have gone through this journey of sobriety look back on ourselves and we see actually I played several roles in that play. You know, I've often said about the pub that I went in. I used to drink in Sutton in this Young's pub called the Newtown, and there was a public bar and a saloon bar. And the saloon bar had their solicitors, the funeral directors, the estate agents in their suits and whatnot. And my side, the public bar, Dave the carpet, Glugs, was the builders, the plasterers, the mechanics, and what. But if I went around the saloon bar, I would even change the way I talked.
Mm.
You know, I would be a little bit more well spoken in that just to fit in. And it's like, what the hell am I doing? Just be yourself. But I was so desperate to be accepted and liked.
Hard, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard because you so want to be yourself, but you so convince yourself that people were gonna ridicule you and people were gonna judge you. And what you do is you just hide it, and you push it away, and you push it away, and you push it away, and you push it away. You know, and it starts to pain you
Mm,
because you kind of like everything's an effort then. God, look, now I've got to go and see these people and I've got to go and get myself in this sort of state and I've got to do so and so. While you're doing that, you're nicking a couple of glasses of wine. You
mm,
don't realise it. Next thing you know, you're opening a second bottle and you've not even booked a cab yet. Do you know what I mean?
mm,
Like, but it's part of the process. Weekends, like we'd go out and, it'd be a few beers before you got there. And when I got to the club, I'd have to really psych myself up because I was like, how am I going to deal with this?
yeah.
Like, how am I going to deal with all these people and all this noise and all this sort of stuff? Because it's not just about drinking. There's so many things that go on in our body that we don't know how to navigate and we can't understand, but we don't ask. So we just use one thing to try and
Yeah.
sort it all out, and it doesn't. It makes it worse.
But I supposedly, if we've been drinking since we were kids, really, right? Using that coping skill of alcohol is the only thing we've known how to manage social anxiety, you know, like going to an event, always have a couple of liveness before we go to the event. So when you remove that, when you decide to get sober, there's a lifetime of a coping mechanism there you've taken straight away. And so many people come to me and they say, I really struggle with social anxiety. Well, no wonder really, because if you've had that since you were a kid, it's like starting again as a fully grown adult, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely, mate. Absolutely, it really is. And it's yeah, that is. You're literally starting again. You're having to unlearn learn behaviours in order to replace them with new ones, and it's difficult because what you're doing is you're going into the same environments not equipped,
Mm,
but you're expecting something different. But really, it's internal. A lot
yeah.
of my drinking was based on internal problems and internal issues that I just wanted to run away and hide from. And it was easy to do it in alcohol because it was justifiable when it was normal. You
Yeah.
know, in pubs and when we were kids, my mate's dads would be like, I can't wait for my boy to get 18. I'm going to give him his first beer. So you're encouraging that behaviour, right? You're promoting that. And what you're doing is you're caveating it with something positive. He's a man, he'd have a few beers, he can come down the pub with his dad and have it and do so and so. That would hurt me because I didn't have a dad. Right. So I couldn't
Mm,
share that experience. But I'd never look at what the experience would do to me. You know what I mean? It was just like I want to be part of that because that then tells me that I'm accepted and that I'm normal. But that's encouraged. You go into, we could run around the shop and buy a few beers for like the neighbour, and it wouldn't matter because the geezer that was selling it to you knew it was for him. So it said it's your fag, the same thing. Go around the shop with a note, you can get some fags for your nan and give them to you because they didn't know the damage or they didn't know the extent. Since I've given up drinking, mate, I don't see anything that discourages people from drinking. Only from what the likes of you and I, when we talk about the other side, like, look, this is what it was like. It
mm.
wasn't all fucking sunshine and roses. Do you know what I mean? Not every party was glitzy. You know, there was carnage everywhere. And my attitude to drinking was, I need him. You've got to
Mm.
come with me. You give me
I
what I need.
know. I know. There's still so much to be done. And I've heard recently that I think it's in Australia and Ireland, they're going to put cancer warnings on the labels and stuff, which is a big step forward. But the UK are well behind. And that's a whole other podcast, Lee. And I get
Mm.
quite angry about it because I know all about the harms. And I'm not here to get on my soapbox with it. But what I'd like to do, mate, is go back to your 20s, right? Because you gave up 4 years ago, and there's a big space in between then and when you gave up. So how did
Yeah.
that? progress through your 20s and 30s and 40s?
So I think for me, I got into a relationship with somebody when I was 26, 27. But the way that I looked at this relationship was I needed someone to take care of me, to understand, but I didn't know what that felt like because I'd never had a man do that before. And at the same time, being gay, I'm looking for someone to maybe start a relationship with. So all these feelings that I had, they're all confusing. I couldn't collate them or make sense of them. You know what I mean? I knew what I wanted, but I didn't know how it felt like. I didn't know how to go and get it. And then I met somebody, and it was almost like he came into my life at the right moment. Do you know what I mean? Like he really did. And it was very quick, the way the relationship developed, and it became very intense. Um, and I left a couple of times. Like that's my default setting. Pat my bag them off. Yeah, learn behaviour. Because I couldn't deal with situations. I didn't know, I couldn't verbalize stuff. So it was just easy for me to go because I'm very much driven by my feelings and my emotions. And so I'd leave, you know what I mean? And they were red flags to me. But, you know, he kind of charmed. And again, I needed that more than I needed to leave him. And it got toxic over the years. You know, we was together for like 8 years and it got absolutely toxic. So my drinking just ramped up even more. Like ramped up even more. I stopped working, I'd stay indoors, I'd sit there and I'd smoke joints, play computer and drink. And that was it. And on reflection of that relationship, it was very much, I was very much gaslit in that. There was a lot of coercive control, a lot of manipulation. But this is where the conditioning comes in, the behaviours. I didn't want a broken relationship because I'd see my mum do that all the time. I see her just throw the towel in when she won't get in it, and then she'll get in her own way, and then it'll go. And I didn't want that, and I stayed because of what I saw rather than how I was feeling. And then I lost everything. I lost my flat. You know, it left me in thousands and thousands of pounds worth of debt, and I had to move back in with my mum. And she run the pub that all my mates and myself drank in. So there's more shame and more embarrassment. And I stopped drinking. Right, it was really weird. I stopped drinking for about a year. A whole year I stopped drinking. My mates would go, "Why you have a few beers?" I was like, "No, mate, I'm drinking soda water now." Because I had to get my life back together. And I had to take away some of these things that were part of it, that were causing it. And it was weird going out with my mates and not drinking, and then going home and getting up in the morning. And I was really missing not going out on a piss with her. But for some reason, I was just on this journey of putting myself back together again. And then I still didn't think I had a problem with alcohol at all. So then I started drinking again with my mates and stuff. But you don't deal with your emotions, do you? I wasn't dealing with what happened in that relationship. I just suppressed it down and just put on my mask and just went about my
Mm.
business, hoping it'd go away. And it doesn't. You know, it doesn't. And then it just rears its head. And then I met Mark, the geezer that I'm with now. We've been together like 15 years. And I was still dragging that old relationship and those old habits into that new relationship because I didn't know how to accept what he was giving me. And everything he was giving me is what I craved. But I kept pushing it away because it was unfamiliar. And then I'd have a few beers because I'm like, this is kind of weird. So I'd
Mm.
always go back. And then we'd go out and club and have a few drinks. Mark's not really drink orientated, you know, he can take it or leave it. But I think maybe I probably pressed my habit on him a bit more. You know, every weekend with 4 or 5 bottles of wine. It was normal because we'd split it and go, well, you had three and I had three, which is, we kind of say that was like an adult normal.
Mm.
And then drugs got involved. Um, and then we moved and bought our house. And then kind of drugs came in a lot more and alcohol came in a lot more. And then my life just started spiraling, like literally just started spiraling. You know, I was a functioning addict. You know, literally I could go to work without sleeping for 4 days and function. And no one would question it because I could lie. I was a good liar. I could hide all that stuff. And then I'd go out with him at lunchtime, have a few beers with him, which then it steadied me, which means I
Yeah.
was on the same level as them, which means no one could say anything. I'd have a few beers after work, go home, a few beers at home, and repeat the next day. And then smash it at the weekend. And that was my life for like six years, just constantly over and over again. And it wears you out.
Oh my God, I was just thinking about, our poor bodies, what we put them through. You know,
It
how,
wears you out, man.
yeah, how did that affect your relationship with Mark though? Because you say he could take or leave it. Did it start impacting?
Yeah, so what happened was, it was that we started taking heavier drugs. And I was a greedy drinker, right? And I was a greedy drug taker. I'd go to the kitchen, fill up our glasses, I'd neck my glass of wine, right? Toppings up, neck half of it, and then top them both up again. I'd always be insistent to go into the kitchen. So I was, okay, I was gone. because that's what I was doing. That was a habit. That was the behaviour that I had. Couldn't taste the alcohol, mate, but I knew that there was alcohol in it. So, but again, I still didn't question why I had that. And why my habit was like that. Why did I drink like that? I didn't enjoy it. As long as I could taste the alcohol, I didn't care. But I never questioned it because it was normal. I had
Mm.
no reason to. No one had ever questioned to me, like, why do you drink that if you know it tastes like so and so? And so we started to get heavier and heavier into drugs. And I think mentally, it was battering me, like really battering me. And then we moved. I stopped taking drugs. I had a breakdown, a huge, huge breakdown. I made 2 attempts on my life. I just didn't want to be it. Because the thing was, when you take drugs and you take alcohol, what it does is it makes you much more likely to start romanticizing or thinking about suicidal thoughts or suicide. And I was constantly thinking about it. No one's going to miss me.
Mm.
No one's going to miss the fact that I'm not here anymore. I don't add no value to the world. Like the way
They're
that I'm
better
feeling.
off without me.
I don't want to be in this pain anymore, Dave. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't. I was sick of getting up every single morning and feeling the way that I felt, but I never associated it back to the drugs and the alcohol. It was an internal thing. It was a thing in my brain, in my mind, constantly every day telling me, "You're fucking shit. You're no good. Nobody's going to miss you. You can go to work and pretend and they give you promotion and all that, but you're just a sack of shit." This is what I used to. This is the narrative that I had, and the drugs and alcohol used to silence it for a little while until it wore off, and then it'll come back tenfold.
That's scarily similar to how I used to feel, mate, to be honest. Like I do remember, and I apologize to anyone if this is triggering, but I do remember one evening coming in and thinking like that and thinking everyone else is better off without me. No one will miss me. And it's almost like a complete and utter romanticizing over something that's so horrendous. And I woke up in the morning face down on the floor thinking, oh my God. And it was purely because I couldn't find the tablets that I was looking for, and it was like, oh my God, like it it was scarily near to that happening,
Mm.
and so it it's a big conversation. Again, I apologize if it's triggering anyone, but it's where alcohol took me was to that place. It was the darkest place ever that I wanted to end it, take my life,
Mm.
because it I couldn't see a way out, I think. And rather than seek professional help or even stop for one day, it seemed like the only option for me.
100% with you on that. Okay, look, trigger warning to anybody that's listening. Okay, but this is how we normalize these conversations, is by having these conversations. I planned because I didn't want to keep feeling the way that I was feeling. And I believed that the only way for me to stop feeling that way was to end my life. Right, that's how I felt because I didn't want this pain to spew out to all the people that I loved. So I'll give you a couple of facts, right? So for every one person that completes suicide, 138 people are impacted by that. Okay, it's not just friends and family, it's work colleagues, people that you might buy your coffee from on a daily basis, buy your newspaper, people that you might see in the bakery. All those people are impacted by you because you are part of their everyday. And when you're not there anymore, it impacts them. And here's another fact that I believe that I thought that I could do is that when you try to end your life because you're trying to stop the pain, you don't know what it feels like to be out of pain because you're dead. And I
Mm.
didn't know that. I didn't know that. And I remember when a few years ago we were talking about suicide come on TV, and Mark didn't know about my second attempt. And he was kind of like, I didn't know this. And we never really spoke about it. And I was like, why don't you want to talk about it? And he went, look, I'll tell you something, no. He said, I want you to listen to this. He went, I'm scared. He said, I'm scared that you're going to do it again. I never thought about that. I never thought about the impact he had on him. I didn't think about how it would change his behaviour because now he's trying to think to himself, well, I'm having a down day. Is he going to do so and so? So what I had to learn was that my actions speak louder than words. I have to show him through what I do that I'm not going to go there. And what it shows me is what my extreme is as well. So
Mm.
this is why it's important with the work that I do, right? Because it isn't about just giving something up, right? It's about recognizing what your triggers and what your behaviors are. The associations are the most deadliest things to an addiction. You can give up the drink and you can give up the drugs, right? But the associations are the things that are completely entwined into us that make us do the things that we do. And that was the hardest thing for me to learn because I was like, I'm not craving it, but I'm craving the behavior. I'm craving the association. Like we was talking the other day, you said about Christmas, I was saying about like missing the lifestyle. I wouldn't allow myself to do that because it felt then as if I was being a fraud.
Mm.
But I do miss that lifestyle. Christmas is hard for me, hard because of the fact of not going to the parties and the celebrations and the enjoyment and the connection and the engagement with people. I don't have the ability to do that much now because I don't like being in those environments. I still question myself, think like, how did I spend so much time in a pub in a
Mm.
dark place that stank? But I
Mm.
loved it and I couldn't wait to get down there. But it was the most scary place to be.
Mm.
I was scared to go to a pub, so I would drink so I could go into a pub. But then when I was in the pub, I didn't want to leave. Like, I'm the last man
Yeah,
standing.
it's crazy when you break it down, isn't it? I get what you said earlier about when going through a door. Even in my local, I used to get anxiety of who was in behind the door.
Yeah,
And sometimes I walk in and there weren't the people I expected to be there. And then it's like, oh, this is awkward. And I go to the bar and I drink really, really quickly so I could get through that period of time and then start chatting to the people I didn't think were going to be there. So it was a
yeah,
really random thing. Um, it's there's a lot of synergy between you and me, but I imagine there are people listening to this as well that can relate to it. And so, with your relationship with Mark, years later, where was the part that you started to think, I've really got to look at this and get my act together? Because there are periods of time that you kind of flip flop out of, yeah, I've got to stop this. You know, for example, my Eastbourne thing that people know, I came back and said, I'm never drinking again. 2 days later, I was, and
mm,
it was the most horrendous rock bottom I've ever had in my life. And 2 days later, made the difference from how I felt to, oh, well, sod it. So
yeah.
where was that in your life?
So for me, I'd gone through the suicide attempts. I'd gone through the breakdown. I still never spoke to people. Still never told nobody about it. I mean, I still kept it to myself. Still phoned in work. Said I was going to come in a couple of days. Rock up, mask fixed, the uniform on, ready to go. No one asking questions. People say, "Oh yeah, you good?" And you go, "Yeah, I'm good." We go, "Don't you?" "All right, mate, you good? You're fine. Yeah, see you later." So we ask a question, give the answer, and go. So no one really bothered in that way. So it was easy, but it felt weird. And I took 3 months off of work and I was on my own. I might went to work and I was sitting in the house by myself and I hated it. I hated every minute of it because the one person I was trying to escape with me and I couldn't. I had to sit with me and I didn't know how to deal with that. I really didn't know how to deal with that. And my brain's overactive anyway and I can't sit still and I'm trying to find things to do and I couldn't connect with anything. And all I kept thinking to myself was, I could just go on the piss and I could just go get some drugs and no, do you know what I mean? The alcohol wasn't a problem as much as the drugs was at the time. That was the thing that I had to focus on. And then I stopped. And then what we done was we moved. We sold up and we moved to France. Temptation was becoming too much. Um, and I had all this time to do nothing. Nobody to tell me what to do and nobody telling me that I can't do things. And I've just moved to the country where it makes my most favourite drink, wine.
Mm.
So I become, it was 3 o'clock somewhere, Dave. Do you know what I mean? So I could have a couple of glasses of wine or a few beers. And Mark and I put on probably about a stone and a half in the first year. Grew our hair, grew our beards, everything. Really kind of engaged in the lifestyle.
I got to see those
Um,
pictures, mate.
I'll let you have a look. I swear to God. And then Mark's mum got sick. So France war a little bit, a couple of years. Mark's mum got sick. He went back to the UK, and it was just coming into the first part of COVID. And I hated being on my own. I couldn't talk to anybody because I couldn't speak the language. I couldn't go out and engage with anybody because I just couldn't speak the language. So it felt like somebody had cut off the most sociable part of me. But the only way that I was mixing and engaging people was going out having a few beers, going back to the houses. And then my drinking just got worse. It got worse and worse and worse. I was drinking like 3 litres of wine. You know what I mean? I was drinking whatever was in the cupboards. I was getting panicky if I got down to 2 bottles of wine at night. I'd have to go and find another bottle of wine. It was literally that's what it was. And I'd get drunk and I'd be a right dickhead. And I could feel myself going. When you get to that stage where you're just a bastard, but you just can't stop yourself. Do you know what I mean? Because you could justify it. And I was just a horrible person to be about. Really, really horrible. And when Mark went back to the UK, his mum got sick, and I was on my own. And every morning for about a week, I kept waking up on a Saturday drunk, hungover, covered in red wine. My dog's crying because I've not let them out and stuff like that. And I remember one morning I woke up and I was sitting on the Saturday and I thought, oh, I can't keep doing it. Like, what is your problem? Like, you need to sort yourself out, Lee. Like, this is probably going to be the best time for you to sort yourself out. So I stopped. Just gave up.
Wow. Wow.
Literally, I just gave up. I'd given up before, Dave. Right? I'd done dry January and all that. What I was doing, mate, was just waiting for like
Were you
day
day
31.
counting, mate? That's what you was doing
Yeah,
before.
it was the countdown,
Yeah.
not as that, but that reward at the end was bigger because I did this. Like, I ain't got a problem. I could stop for like 31 days. So this day, like, I woke up and I stopped and I was like, I'm not going to drink again. I'm not going to drink again for a week. I had to make it realistic, right? I had to make it manageable. I'm not going to wake up and go, I'm going to stop drinking. Like, that's my life. That's the life that I know. Right? It's in it. So I just promised myself a week. I didn't tell that many people because I didn't want to mug myself off again. And I made it about me. And I'd already kind of started my coaching business and I'd already started opening up about my mental health, but I never related it back to alcohol because it was normal. That's what
Mm,
you do. You have a drink with lunch, drink with dinner, whatever it is, birthdays, Christmases, funerals, there's always alcohol there because we need to get on the level to communicate with each other. And best thing I ever did. Stopping was easy. Like stopping drinking was easy, right? Because I've drunk the house dry. So there was nothing in there. I'd have bottles that have dregs in it. I'd knock that back. Stuff that I wouldn't even drink, like sangria. If it had alcohol in it, it was down my neck. Like I drunk the house completely bare dry. And then when I started, after about 2 months of not drinking, we go to people's houses for dinner and that, and they'll go like, it'd be, oh, I can't wait to see it. It'd be really good because I was life and soul. And I'd stop drinking. And people started thinking I was boring. Oh, you used to be funny. It's like, no, I used to make you laugh. You know what I mean? It's like, let's call it what it is. It's like, yeah, but I miss the old Lee. It's like, tough. This is what you're going to get now, like this version of it. And people didn't like it. People couldn't adapt to it. And people don't like a mirror being held up to them. Because if I'm doing the same thing that they're doing, and then I'm recognizing there's something about me I need to change, all of a sudden they're like, oh, hang on a second. What are you implying? It's like, nothing. I'm just thinking about me now. I'm not allowing you to be my audience anymore.
mm,
I'm not being this version of myself anymore. And the best thing about it was I done it in lockdown when there was no distractions. So I just moved everything out of the way that would bring me back into that. And I haven't looked back. It was hard, Dave, right? Because you're adjusting to a new lifestyle and you're understanding stuff about yourself that you don't want to see, or you didn't want to see, or you didn't want to acknowledge, or you didn't want to hear. And it's a horrible place to go. It really is. But what you find out about yourself is incredible.
mm,
It's incredible. It's incredible. It really is. It's so worth the adventure
mm,
because I didn't realize what I was capable of. Like, all this stuff comes from me giving up drinking drugs. Everything that I'm doing from that, it's all come from giving up those two vices. And I'm just talking about it. That's all I'm doing. Nothing more, nothing less. All right. And it's purely because of the fact that I recognized something in myself that I needed to change. But it wasn't just let's just take away this external thing. It's like you need to go deep in. And I've done a lot of work on myself for the last 8 years, and it's been fucking horrendous because I've tried to avoid that part of myself for so many years. And what I did learn was that a lot of blame and responsibility that I held wasn't mine.
mm,
It wasn't my blame. I wasn't to blame for this, and I'm not responsible for this sort of stuff. So I had to really weed through that stuff and work out what it is that I was responsible for because I blamed everybody for my drinking. It weren't my problem. It was all your fault. You made me do this. You made me do that. I blame my mum for a lot of stuff, like a lot of stuff, because it was easy rather than looking at it and trying to work it out. And I realized my mum was a fucking incredible woman. Right, she raised three children by herself, and what she's done, she turned us into incredible
mm,
human beings, right? And I never saw that. I would just smash her for all the things that she didn't do and the things
mm.
that she never gave us, right? And as you get older, my mum died 3 years ago in February. Right? Hang on, I just need to compose myself for a second there. And it took me having a conversation with her when she was dying for me to meet her and not my mum. And that was a very, very pivotal thing for me because I started to realize that actually, who we was isn't who we are. Who we've become has not happened yet. Do you understand what I mean? And seeing this
100%.
woman, like seeing this woman lying in a hospital bed in her front room that was fiercely, fiercely independent, and she can't even fucking peel a lid off a yogurt pot. And you're like, it puts things into perspective, it really does. And I just wanted her to be proud of me. You
Mm.
know what I mean? And she was, like, and she is. Do you know what I mean? And I think that sometimes we just lose sight of why.
What I love about that is that what you said then about seeing her as a human being rather than just your mum. She was very young, wasn't she, when she had you? And it was the same for me. My mum died in a hospital bed at home,
Yeah, same as
and
mine.
yeah, and I was holding her hand, and I would never normally tell her that I loved her. Like it wasn't that kind of relationship, but I held her hand, and she'd almost gone late. She was staring up almost at a 45-degree angle, and her eyes changed colour. And I'd lost her, but I held her hand and I whispered in her ear and I said to her, Mum, thank you so much for what you've shown me. Thank you for helping me to be the man I am, because it, from her leaving back then, made me so resilient in life, and it was a gift that she gave me. And so when you say that, I was getting goosebumps then, because seeing them as a human being
Mm.
rather than the role they had as your parent, made me
Yeah,
look at it
yeah.
completely different. And it's how I take it through now as,
Mm.
the learning path. But before, when I was drinking, I was full of resentment, full of almost loathing, hatred, bitterness. And that's what alcohol did to me. It made me resentful. It made me judgmental. It made me a really not a very nice person.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
and when you say, I have this vision, right? That imagine if we were at the pearly gates and they said, right, you can come in or you can do things differently. What choice do you want to make now? And of course, if you could change it, then if you died and you were still drinking, and you can look back and go, do you know what? I want to stop drinking and see where my life goes. That's how it feels for me when I was 54. I made the change then, and my life has gone completely in another direction. 100% in another direction, right? And this is why I do these interviews and these conversations and whatnot. So people can hopefully think about their relationship with alcohol, no matter what it looks like, because you and me, right, we are down the heavier end. When you say about 3 litres of wine and drinking the dregs, I was exactly the same, right? And greedy, and nothing was ever enough. But there are also people listening that might have a couple of glasses of wine with dinner and it gives them anxiety, or they might not drink in the week, yet at weekends they drink too much. It affects so many
Yeah,
different people, right? And for them to just think about it, think that I've got an opportunity here to change things, but for not just for me, for every, people around us, like our kids, our family, our parents, our friends, but mainly us. I've got an
yeah,
opportunity here.
yeah. Do you know what I've learned is that I'm important. All right, I'm important to me. And a lot of the people that I coach, the first thing I say to them is like, "Where do you see yourself in 12 months?" And they'll go, "Well, me." And what's like, "Where do you see yourself?" And they go, "I don't know. I never really thought about that because we forget about us, And when we forget about us, we don't realize what we're doing to ourselves
Mm,
because it just becomes automatic. We automatically do these things. And when I say to people, "Why'd you do that?" and they go, "I don't know."
mm,
Like, all right, let's have a look at it. Let's add a bit of context to it, and we track it. Where does it come from? Do you believe that? Is that your narrative? Is that preventing you from moving forward? When you really ask questions, people then start to think. And one of the things I always say to people when I meet them is, "How are you feeling, mate? I'm asking you a direct question, and I'm
yeah.
asking you because I'm interested."
And looking at me in
and
the eyes as well.
right, and that makes me feel seen.
Mm,
I was just somebody.
mm,
So you just become somebody and you forget about what you're capable of and you
mm,
forget about maybe some talents that you've got or your uniqueness or your character or your integrity. All these things you forget because you just do things automatically.
mm.
It just becomes a habit. And
Yeah,
drinking was a habit that became a lifestyle that became me.
yeah. I
Do you
totally
understand what I
agree,
mean?
mate. Yeah, and it's when you start to look a little bit deeper. And I say, you have to do the work. You, it's no good going to like that year off you had. You didn't do the work. You day counted. It's like, yeah, I didn't know where it's going. I had a year off, but what did that year give you? You just didn't drink for a year, but there was no self development in that year. you know
No, there
and
wasn't.
it, and this is why I say how important is connection, connect with the right people, align with the right relationships, be positive as well, rather than dragging your ass around in victim mode. You have to be positive,
Yeah,
don't you? um
yeah. We
and
live in a
and
go on, mate.
what I was going to say as well is where you've developed incredible resilience. You said earlier about your relationship with men has felt terrifying because of your experiences and whatever. Now tell everyone what you do for a job, which is incredible, really. You go around where?
All right, so primarily I'm a life coach, as I said at the
Yeah.
beginning. Right, that's what I do for a living. I love that. Okay, I like being around people. I like seeing people get that moment when they go, oh, and they get it. However, what I also have to do, I'm an ambassador for a charity called the Lighthouse Charity. And what we do is, as a charity, we provide and facilitate and offer services to everybody within the construction industry and their immediate family. So physical, financial, emotional, and legal support, all free, right? All confidential. And what we do is we travel the length and breadth of the UK, Ireland, Wales, and Scotland, and we go and deliver talks. And what we do is we stand in front of a proper whole site stand down, 50, 60, 100, 400, 500 people at once, and we talk about the charity and we talk about lived experiences. So I talk about my drug issue, my alcohol issue, my abandonment issues, and being gay,
In
right?
front of a load
Because
of
in front of a load of men that terrify me, right?
yeah.
And the way that I normalize this behavior is I just say to them, look, we all look different, but we all assume that we're the same, and we're not. So I'm going to tell you a bit about myself. And I get really, really anxious. As I said, I get social anxiety. So the first thing I say to these guys is, I'm going to tell you something about myself. And I say, this is how I'm feeling. And I tell them about the sensations that are running through my body, how every muscle in my body is tense, like the whole experience of my anxiety right there and right now. And I do it for two reasons, Dave. Right? Number one is I acknowledge it and I take the power back from it. Right? Because I used to always say that I'm an anxious person. I'm not. I just experience anxiety in certain
Yeah,
situations. So I
absolutely.
take that power back, right? And then also by sharing that is I can see people in the audience going, I feel that way, but not knowing what anxiety is. We just assume that people know, and we don't. We know what we know. We only know what we know, right? Until somebody teaches us, educates us, challenges us, or gives us some knowledge. But again, it's up to us what we do with that. And so that's what I do because I've learned now by taking away those external distractions that I have to face my fucking fears.
Mm,
And what it does is it makes you question it. Why am I scared of men?
yeah,
Because I'm scared they're going to leave. That
yeah.
was it.
Or not like
That's how
me,
I
or think I'm an
do.
idiot. Yeah, or
I
or
say that.
yeah,
I
honestly,
say that.
or there's a Q&A and they might ask you something you don't know. I mean, that's another one, But do you know
I
what?
think
It's when you finish these things and you walk away and get in your car or you get on the bus or train and you almost want to go, yes,
it's
I've done
true.
it. And it gives you such a dopamine hit. And let's face
Yeah,
it, right? I mean, you tell me you got ADHD, right?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So I express so many symptoms of ADHD, but I just try and manage those symptoms, right? I don't personally need a diagnosis, but I find that most people that get themselves in trouble with some kind of addiction, right, lack dopamine, right?
yeah.
And then when we do something like this, the dopamine you get is off the scale when you leave. I did a presentation at my girlfriend's work the other day. I did too. And it was what a lovely group of people, genuinely beautiful people. And the Q&As went on for an hour. It opened up such a conversation. And I remember getting in my car, and as I drove away, I've gone, yes, because I knew they went well. The conversations it opened up after, and I felt really proud of myself, but I also felt I'd done a good job. And that's the dopamine hit I need in my life. I don't need to think, right, yeah, I can have a drink now. I did because I didn't know anything different. But now I get my dopamine from other areas, and it's like having conversations with you as well, because it's been such a brilliant conversation, Lee. We had like a preliminary chat the other day which was booked in 15 minutes, and it lasted an hour.
And what, my fault? That's you, mate. That was you. He was like, and one more thing, and let me just say this, and I'm like, come on, Dave, you said 15 minutes, mate. What's going on?
Ah, yeah, right. Oh, but Lee, honestly, mate, I know you're heading for the UK tomorrow, so I'll see you at about 10:30 for a cup of coffee. But it's been so brilliant, mate, and I feel really honoured and privileged that you've shared your story with us today. I'm really grateful, and
No, you're welcome, mate.
And no doubt, I think we'll meet at some point soon. But keep on doing the incredible work you're doing. Standing in front of a load of builders on a building site is even terrifying for me, So I think you're doing great work. Keep well, mate, and safe journey.
Mate, I appreciate the time and space. Thanks so much.
Pleasure, mate.